مصطفى مصطفى منبع للصفا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. Today he discusses two things. He discusses a bit about dhikr and what it's supposed to lead you to. And number two, he discusses something very important, that whenever anybody actually manages to start practicing, Shaitan tries to stop us practicing or any good deed, but when we actually do start practicing or doing good deeds, then there's something that Shaitan throws in another ball to try to mislead us, which is riya and showing off and ostentation. So he talks about how to avoid that. So he says, وَكَمَالُ الذِّكْرِ عِلْمُ الْمُشَاهَدَةِ. He's got a lot of these very concise. This is Sahal ibn Abdullah at-Tustari, rahimahullah. He says the perfection of dhikr, that when your dhikr becomes perfect, then that is where you get the knowledge of mushahada, of witnessing. That's when you get the knowledge of witnessing. What exactly does that mean? Witnessing here refers to that you can actually then start thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every state. Wherever you are, however you are, you'll be thinking about Allah. That's what you call mushahada, where you'll witness Allah. When you witness something, it means you see evidences of something. That's how you can witness something, that you in evidence. So that's why Allah's evidence is everywhere. We just don't observe it because we're not looking out for it, and we don't even know what the evidences are and how it's linked. So he says that when you do enough dhikr and you reach perfection in your dhikr, the time you'll know that you've got that is when you can actually start seeing the evidence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala everywhere, which is muraqabatullah, where you are constantly aware of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every state, whether you are alone or whether you are with other people. So even when you're having a nice conversation or a meal, you've gone out for a meal with your friends, in the middle of that whole 1 hour, 1.5 hour maybe meal that you take, enjoying the meal, having a bit of a laugh and discussion and all that kind of stuff, maybe making a bit of a fun of one another as you do friendly banter. In the midst of all of that, you remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you'll say Alhamdulillah. You'll thank Allah for the food. You'll thank Allah for the company. You'll thank Allah for... There's lots of things to thank for. You'll thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the ability to go and eat out like that, which a lot of people don't, for example. I'm not justifying eating out. I'm just saying that even within that, you'll actually start thinking. You'll say Astaghfirullah if you saw something wrong, or if you thought something wrong, or something bad was said. Somehow you're going to remember Allah, even in a time of massive distraction. For a lot of people, that would be just a place of distraction. But a person who's connected to Allah will even think of Allah in those kind of situations. And if we don't, then it means that we're just not there yet. We don't have the state of muraqabah, the state of mushahada. Why? Because this is obviously told to us. He says, because of the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, اُعْبُدُ اللَّهَ كَأَنَّكَ تَرَاهُ فَإِن لَمْ تَكُنْ تَرَاهُ فَإِنَّهُ يَرَاكَ. You should worship Allah as though you're seeing Him, as though you do see Him. And if you can't do that, if you can't see Him, then He sees you. Know that at least. And he says that this is the maratibu ahli al-ijlali wa ta'zim. This then becomes, you get to the level of the people who have true reverence for Allah. People who really recognize Allah, to recognize their reverence. Because, if there's anybody that you think is great, do you think you will act in an uncouth way in front of them? Sometimes you don't know the level of something, you mess around them, but you suddenly find out that, oh, they are a very special, this is like my grandfather's friend, or this is a Maulana so-and-so, or something, and then suddenly that respect comes into your heart for it. Very interesting, have you seen it? You've had that, we have that where like, somebody doesn't know you, and then somebody says, do you know that this is Muftī Sahab? This is Maulana Sahab? And then like suddenly they start behaving, right? And they genuinely start behaving, and then they even ask forgiveness for, all of those days I was a bit casual with you, I'm really sorry. And like, okay, what's the problem with that? But that's what it is. When if we had that same respect for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we know Allah is looking everywhere, then that is what it would have been, where we're very respectful in every state, because we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is looking. That's why the people who genuinely have dhikr, they're very humble people, because they're always aware that Allah is watching, and I better be careful of what I do. Then Sahl radiyallahu anhu says, الرياء في أهل القدر Riya is among the Qadarites, the people who believe in absolute free will, that humans create their own actions and Allah doesn't even know what they do, for example. That's one of their views. لأنهم يعتقدون أعمالهم من أنفسهم واستطاعتهم, because they think that all of their actions are all coming from themselves. So if you think that you produce your own actions, then you're going to show off with them that I did this and I did that. فأما أهل السنة والجماعة فيعتقدون في أعمال البر كلها أنها من الله عز وجل عليهم. They just, أهل السنة والجماعة believe that everything comes from Allah. Everything comes from Allah, right? لولا ذلك لما قدروا عليها. And they believe that hadn't it been from Allah, we wouldn't have been able to do it. It's only Allah that's enabling us to do it. We just make an effort. And even that is with the tawfiq of Allah, that we make an effort. Somebody's made dua for us, or Allah wills good for us. فَلَيْسَ يَكُونُ الرِّيَاءُ فِيهِمْ إِلَّا خَاطِرًا يُبْتِلُ مَا يَعْتَقِدُونَ. Essentially what he's saying is that proper riya, proper ostentation is in the people who don't believe that, who believe that humans create their own actions. Because then they're fully attributing every deed that they do to themselves. So he's trying to give us a bit of a an olive leaf or whatever you call it, right? He's just trying to make you feel better for the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, saying you can't have that kind of riya. So what is the riya that Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah? We clearly have riya, right? He's saying it's just a thought that will invalidate what you actually believe. Because our belief is that everything comes from Allah. Who's enabled us to be here today? Allah, some way or the other, right? He's enabled us. So then we officially believe that as our point of faith. The Qadariyah don't believe that. So they're doing proper riya anyway. So if we're believing that, that's our belief in Allah, that He's the one who's enabled us here, then how can we show off about it? That's a bit of a hypocrisy, isn't it? That's wrong. قال Abdur-Rahman معنى قول أبي Muhammad. This is the commentator. He says that what Tustari means by this is هو خاص في أهل التيقظ والمحاسبة في بدء العمل بصدق عقد الإيمان. This is specific to those people who are generally aware and they have generally a lot of concern about what they're going to do and whether they're going to do it right or not. When they start an action with full truthfulness and full conviction of their iman. And العمل من من الله تعالى, that every action they do is a favor of Allah. If you're studying here, it's a favor of Allah. If we're sitting here remembering Allah, we just sat and did salawat, and that's a favor of Allah. It's a mannullah. فَإِذَا تَمَّ فَرْعُهُ عَلَى أَصْلِهِ. This is a really interesting idea. If this, you can say, this offshoot is based upon its original foundation, because at the end of the day, doing durood sharif, salawat, is just an expression. If that is based on a proper foundation of ikhlas and sincerity, then salim al-amalu wa khalusa insha'Allah. Wa khalasa insha'Allah. Then your action will be safe. So there's no way that you can do actions that are good if they're not on the proper basis of being sincere. So we have to establish the basis of sincerity. Then any action that comes from it is going to be sincere as well, and is going to be purely for the sake of Allah. فَأَمَّا مَنْ دَخَلَ نِيَّتَهُ الْمُرَاءَةِ. For anybody in whose intention becomes adulterated and sullied and dirted by showing off, the idea that I'm doing it for somebody else, أو ختم به عمله, or it wasn't in the middle that we just messed up in ikhlas, but we actually ended it like that as well. So one is that it could happen in the middle and we get rid of that thought and we say, no, it's for Allah, like in the middle of prayer. When you're doing qira'ah and you're a good qari especially, are we focusing on in the front or are we focusing at the back? I mean, when I say in the front, I mean that we're praying for Allah. It doesn't mean He's in front of us literally like that. Or are we focusing on the people who are listening to us? Now in the middle, you might do some really good reading and you get to a certain maqam, right? And you produce some nahawand or something like that, right? Or rust or something like that. You get really excited, you know? وَلِلَّهِ خَزَائِنُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. And it's like, oh man, people are really going to like this one, right? Can you see in the middle we messed up, even though we started إِنِّي وَجَّهْتُ وَجْهِي لِلَّذِي فَطَرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. So now we definitely want to end it like that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. People are going to enjoy the salam as well. You understand? That's ending it with that. We don't want to do that. this is a training obviously that we have to do. So that's why he's saying anybody in the midst of their action, if the riya creeps in or they end it with that, فَقَدْ بَطَلَ ذَلِكَ الْعَمَلِ, then you've literally invalidated that amal you've just done for the sake of Allah. People might say, great, but for Allah, وَإِن كَانَ يَعْلَمُ أَنَّ ذَلِكَ الْعَمَلِ مِن مَنِّ اللَّهِ تَعَالَى, even though the guy knows that it was only Allah who made me do imamat, who gave me this voice. Like if you ask him, then he's going to say that. Because he's not a qadari who believes that it's all from him. Right? لأن الأعمال ترد إلى النية. At the end of the day, every action of ours, we turn back to intention. That's the foundation. That's a really interesting way to put it. That every expression we do has to go back to the foundation. Is it sincere or not? قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم الأعمال بالنية. Actions are according to intention. وَلِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَّا نَوَى, and for everybody is what he intends. وَقَالَ الرِّيَاءُ أَخْفَى مِن دَبِيبِ النَّمْلِ. Ostentation is more subtle, the way it can creep into something, than even the very subtle walking of an ant. You can hardly hear that, can you? وَقَالَ مَنْ سَمَّعَ سَمَّعَ اللَّهِ. This is the most frightening hadith, that literally is like, if whoever wants to be heard, Allah will allow him to be heard. You want to promote yourself? You can do that, but you're not going to get anything from Allah. You can become a celebrity, right? Because you want to do that, you use the right means, you use the right kind of advertisements, the right kind of trending words. You do these weird videos, right, to, you know, attract people's attention and do crazy things, you know. So you'll become famous, notorious, whatever you want it to be. But what's the point? وَمَنْ رَاءَ اللَّهُ بِهِ. Whoever wants to be seen will be seen. And that's become so easy today to do through all of these online things. So I think he finished it says, Imam Sahel says, ذِكْرُ الْقُلُوبِ لِلْحَرَامِ حَرَامٌ عَلَى الْقُلُوبِ. For those who understand Arabic, they'll enjoy this. ذِكْرُ الْقُلُوبِ لِلْحَرَامِ حَرَامٌ عَلَى الْقُلُوبِ. For the hearts to think of haram is haram on the hearts. So it's haram for us to think of the haram. And then he carries on, but I think our time is up. So inshallah we'll continue this. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us sincerity. May Allah allow us to strengthen that foundation, so then all the actions that we do, they can effortlessly, inshallah, be without riya and without ostentation. Just have to get the foundation to be solid, then you don't have to worry about all the time in the actions. And that is by the dhikr of Allah and being attentive of Allah, to reach that ma'rifah that he said in the beginning, that if your dhikr gets perfection, you will always be thinking about Allah. Then why would you show off? Because you're always thinking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah make that easy for us.